The bridge of the horizon's edge hummed with the usual sounds of deep space patrol. Commander Jake Morrison sat in his chair, watching the starfield drift past on the main view screen. His crew worked quietly at their stations, running through another routine day in the Outer Rim territories. It had been 3 months since they left Earth, and nothing interesting had happened in all that time. Jake was a tall man with short brown hair and tired eyes. He had served in Earth's space fleet for 15 years, and most of that time had been boring. Patrol routes, equipment checks, and endless reports filled his days. Sometimes he wondered if joining the Galactic Council had been worth all the excitement people had promised. Lisa Grant sat at the tactical station to his left. She was sharp and quick, always ready for trouble even when there was none. Danny Brooks worked in engineering, keeping the ship running smoothly. Karen Price managed the medical bay, treating the occasional headache or sprained ankle. Tony Reed handled communications, which mostly meant listening to empty static between the stars. Earth was still new to the galactic community. Humanity had discovered faster-than-light travel only 30 years ago, and they had spent most of that time alone, exploring nearby systems. When they finally met other alien species, the reactions had been mixed. Some aliens were curious about these newcomers. Others were afraid. The reason for that fear had a name: Deathworld. That was what the other species called Earth. They said it was one of the most dangerous planets in the known galaxy. The gravity was too strong. The weather was too violent. The animals were too aggressive. The bacteria and viruses were nightmares. Most aliens would die within hours on Earth's surface without heavy protective gear. Humans had evolved on this harsh world, and it had made them different. They were stronger than most species. They could endure more pain. They healed faster. They could eat foods that would poison other beings. And perhaps most disturbing to the peaceful galactic community, humans were very good at violence. Earth's history was filled with wars, conflicts, and struggles for survival. It had forged humanity into something the galaxy had rarely seen: natural warriors. Because of this, the Galactic Council kept humans at arm's length. They were members, technically, but nobody trusted them with important work. Human ships patrolled the empty regions where nothing ever happened. Human diplomats sat in meetings but were rarely asked for opinions. The galaxy wanted to keep an eye on the Deathworlders without getting too close. Jake understood this, even if it frustrated him. He knew what humans were capable of, both good and bad, but he also knew his crew were good people who just wanted to help make the galaxy a better place. Tony Reed broke the silence. "Commander, I'm picking up something strange." Jake sat up straighter. "What is it?" "It's a distress signal, sir. Old format, but definitely a call for help. It's coming from the Viridian system, about 6 hours away at full speed." Lisa turned in her chair. "The Viridians? Aren't they those plant people? The peaceful ones?" "That's right," Jake said. He pulled up information on his screen. The Viridians were a gentle species known throughout the galaxy for their botanical expertise. They lived in harmony with their world, growing beautiful gardens and studying plant life. They had no military, no weapons, no defenses of any kind. Their entire culture was built on peace and cooperation. "Play the message," Jake ordered. Tony worked his controls and a voice filled the bridge. It was translated from the Viridian language, but the emotion in it needed no translation. Fear, desperation, hopelessness. "This is Elder Tessalin of the Viridian colony. We are under attack. Ships came from nowhere. They are firing on our settlements. We have no weapons, no way to defend ourselves. Our children are hiding in the gardens. Please, anyone who can hear this, if there is mercy in the stars, please help us. Please, we are dying." The message ended. Silence filled the bridge. Jake felt his chest tighten. He had heard distress calls before in training, but never one so raw, so desperate. "Commander?" Lisa said quietly. "Orders?" Jake pulled up the navigation charts. The Viridian system was 6 hours away. He opened a communication channel to Galactic Council headquarters. "This is Commander Morrison of the Horizon's Edge. We have received a distress call from the Viridian colony. They are under attack, requesting permission to render assistance." The response came back after a long delay. A counselor from one of the older species appeared on screen. The alien looked like a floating jellyfish with too many eyes. Its voice was cold and bureaucratic through the translator. "Negative, Commander Morrison. We have received the same distress call. Council ships are too far away to help in time. The Viridian system has low strategic value. You are ordered to maintain your patrol route. Council forces will investigate after the situation has resolved." Jake stared at the screen. Sir, with respect, by the time council ships arrive, everyone on that planet will be dead. That is unfortunate, Commander, but not your concern. The attackers are likely the Krathul swarm. They are dangerous and numerous. One human ship cannot make a difference. You have your orders. The communication ended. Jake sat back in his chair, his hands gripping the armrests. Around him, his crew waited. They all knew what the orders meant. They were supposed to let the Viridians die. Danny's voice came through from engineering. Commander, I was listening in. That's wrong. Those people need help. I know, Jake said softly. Karen spoke up from medical. The Viridians have never hurt anyone. They're completely peaceful, and we're just going to let them be slaughtered. Jake closed his eyes. He thought about those children hiding in gardens, waiting for death to find them. He thought about Earth's history, about all the times someone had stood up to help when it would have been easier to walk away. He thought about what it meant to be human. He opened his eyes and looked at his crew. Tony, plot a course for the Viridian system. Maximum speed. Lisa smiled. Yes, sir. Danny, I need every bit of power you can give me. Push the engines past their limits if you have to. Already on it, Commander, Danny replied cheerfully. Karen, prep the medical bay for combat casualties. And Tony, send a message to Galactic Council. Tell them we are responding to the distress call and will render whatever assistance we can. They're going to be very angry, sir, Tony warned. I know, Jake said. But someone asked for help and we're going to answer. That's what humans do. The Horizon's Edge changed course, its engines burning bright as it raced toward the Viridian system. Behind them, angry messages from the Council poured in, ordering them to stop, threatening consequences. Jake ignored them all. 6 hours to reach the Viridians, 6 hours to prepare for a battle they would probably lose. But it didn't matter. Someone had called for help and the Deathworlders were coming. In the darkness of space, the Horizon's Edge flew like a streak of light toward a planet full of dying strangers, carrying with it humanity's answer to that desperate plea among the stars. The 6 hours passed too quickly. Jake stood on the bridge as the Horizon's Edge approached the Viridian system. His crew had used every minute to prepare for what was coming. Danny had pushed the engines beyond their safe limits, squeezing out extra speed. Lisa had run combat simulations over and over, studying everything they knew about the Krathul swarm. Karen had organized the medical bay and prepared emergency supplies. Everyone knew this would be bad. The Krathul were pirates and raiders who had terrorized the outer systems for generations. They were brutal and efficient, taking what they wanted and killing anyone who resisted. Most species paid them tribute to avoid attacks. The Viridians had nothing valuable except their peaceful way of life, which made them perfect targets. The Krathul liked easy prey, dropping out of faster than light in 30 seconds, Tony announced. Shields are up. Weapons are charged. Jake gripped his armrests. All hands battle stations. This is not a drill. We are about to engage hostile forces. Remember your training. Watch each other's backs. We can do this. The ship shuddered as it dropped back into normal space. The view screen lit up with the Viridian system and Jake's heart sank. It was worse than he had imagined. 15 Krathul warships filled the space around the planet. Each one was bigger than the Horizon's Edge, covered in weapons and scarred from countless battles. Smaller attack craft swarmed like angry insects between the larger vessels. On the planet below, Jake could see fires burning across the surface. The beautiful gardens and crystal cities were being destroyed. My God, Lisa whispered. Enemy ships are detecting us, Tony said. They're laughing, sir. I'm picking up their communications. They think one human ship is a joke. Good, Jake said. Let them underestimate us. Lisa, target the 3 closest ships. Danny, on my mark, transfer all power from non-essential systems to weapons and shields. Karen, brace for impact. The Krathul ships were turning toward them now, moving slowly and confidently. They looked like predators toying with food. Their commander's face appeared on the view screen. The Krathul looked like a cross between a lizard and a bear, with scales and too many teeth. Its eyes were cruel. Little human ship, the Krathul said through the translator. You are far from your death world. Turn around and we might let you live. These plant people are ours to harvest. Jake stood up and walked toward the screen. His voice was calm and cold. This is Commander Jake Morrison of Earth's fleet. You are attacking a peaceful colony. Leave now or we will remove you by force. The Krathul commander laughed, a horrible wet sound. One ship? You will die screaming, human. We will add your bones to our collection. You were warned, Jake said. He turned to his crew. Fire everything. The horizon's edge erupted with violence. Missiles, energy beams, and kinetic rounds poured from its weapons. The 3 targeted Krathul ships exploded in brilliant flashes of light. Debris scattered across space. The laughter on the enemy channels stopped instantly. All power to engines, Jake shouted. Take us into the middle of their formation. Lisa looked at him with wide eyes. Sir, that's suicide. That's exactly what they'll think too. Do it. The horizon's edge shot forward at incredible speed, diving straight into the cluster of enemy ships. The Krathul, expecting a retreat, scrambled to respond. Their large ships were slow to turn, designed for overwhelming firepower, not quick maneuvering. Jake was counting on that. Lisa, pick your targets. Danny, keep us moving. Don't let them get a solid lock on us. The human ship twisted and spun through space like a dancer, impossibly fast and agile. Lisa fired at weak points in the enemy vessels. Engines, weapon systems, shield generators. Wherever the horizon's edge went, Krathul ships died or were crippled. The enemy fired back, but they kept hitting each other. Their ships were so close together that missed shots struck their own allies. Confusion spread through their ranks. They had never fought an opponent like this before. Most enemies either ran away or fought in careful, predictable patterns. The humans were chaos itself. 2 more ships destroyed, Lisa called out. 3 more heavily damaged. We're taking hits to our rear shields, Danny warned. They're adapting to our movements. Jake watched the battle display. 5 enemy ships were gone. Several more were limping away. But the horizon's edge couldn't take much more damage. They needed to change tactics again. Tony, broadcast on all frequencies. Tell the Krathul commander I challenge him to single combat. His ship against ours. Sir? Tony looked confused. Do it. These pirates respect strength. If we beat their commander, the rest might break. The message went out. For a moment, the Krathul stopped firing. Then a massive warship, larger than all the others, pushed forward. It was covered in trophies from defeated enemies, hull plates, weapons, and worse things Jake didn't want to think about. The Krathul commander's face filled the screen again. He looked furious. You dare challenge me, human? I have killed hundreds of ships. I will crush you personally. Then come and try, Jake said. The 2 ships faced each other while the rest of the Krathul fleet pulled back to watch. It was a matter of honor now, at least in the pirates' brutal culture. The commander's ship was 3 times bigger than the horizon's edge, with more weapons and heavier armor. But it was also slower and less maneuverable. Lisa, I need you to do something very difficult, Jake said quietly. When I give the order, fire everything we have at a single point on their hull. Right here. He marked a spot on the display near the enemy ship's power core. That's a suicide run, Commander. We'll have to get so close their point defense will tear us apart. I know, but it's the only way to punch through their armor. Danny, I need maximum speed. Just 1 burst, everything you've got. Danny's voice was steady. You've got it, sir. The Krathul commander fired first, massive plasma bolts that lit up space. The horizon's edge dodged most of them, but 2 hit their shields. Alarms blared as the shields dropped to 30%. Now, Jake shouted. The human ship shot forward at full speed, closing the distance in seconds. The Krathul's point defense turrets opened fire, hundreds of smaller weapons trying to stop the approaching threat. The horizon's edge shook and groaned as impacts hammered its hull. Armor plating tore away. Systems exploded, but it didn't stop. Lisa waited until they were almost touching the enemy ship. Firing! Every weapon the horizon's edge had fired at once, all focused on that single point. The concentrated energy punched through the Krathul ship's armor like paper. The beam reached the power core and the massive warship exploded from the inside out. The shockwave threw the horizon's edge backward, tumbling through space. Damage report! Jake called out, pulling himself back into his chair. Shields gone. Hull breaches on decks 3 and 4. Engines at 40%, weapons. Most of them are offline, Danny reported. But it had worked. The Krathul commander's ship was nothing but scattered debris, and the rest of the pirate fleet was breaking formation, their ships turning away and fleeing into faster-than-light speed. Without their leader, they had no stomach for more fighting. They're running, Lisa said with amazement. We actually scared them off. Jake allowed himself a moment of relief before reality set in. Tony, scan the planet. What's the situation on the ground? Tony's face fell. Commander, there are still Krathul landing parties on the surface. Probably 100 or more soldiers. They're hunting the Viridians through the settlements. Karen's voice came through from medical. We have to go down there. Those people need help. Jake looked at his battered ship. They had won the space battle, but the fight wasn't over. The Viridians were still dying below. He made his decision quickly. Prep a landing party. 20 Marines in full combat gear. I'm leading it personally. Lisa, you have command of the ship. Keep her in orbit and watch for any Krathul ships coming back. If things get bad up here, leave us and get to safety. Sir, I can't. That's an order, Lieutenant. The ship and crew are your responsibility now. Jake headed for the armory, his crew scrambling to prepare. They had won the battle in space, but the real fight was just beginning on the surface of that burning world below. Part 3. The ground war. The landing craft shook as it entered the Viridian atmosphere. Jake sat with his Marines, checking his weapon for the third time. Sergeant Mike Crawford sat across from him, a big man with steady hands and calm eyes. Corporal Amy Hughes was next to Mike, younger but just as focused. The other 17 Marines were quiet, each lost in their own thoughts. They were all wearing combat armor, carrying rifles and grenades, prepared for a fight most of them had only trained for. Earth's military had seen very little real combat since joining the galactic community. The Council kept humans away from conflicts, afraid of what they might do. Now these young men and women were about to prove whether that fear was justified. Through the landing craft's window, Jake could see the Viridian world. It was beautiful even while burning. The planet was covered in enormous gardens with plants that glowed in soft colors. Crystal structures rose from the landscape like frozen music. Rivers of clear water wound between forests of silver trees, and everywhere smoke rose from fires started by the Krathul attack. 30 seconds to landing, the pilot called back. Jake stood up, gripping a safety handle. Listen up. The Viridians are completely peaceful. They have no weapons, no training, nothing to defend themselves. The Krathul are down here hunting them for sport. Our job is simple. Protect the civilians and eliminate the threat. Rules of engagement are clear. The Krathul are armed hostiles. Defend yourselves and protect the innocent. Understand? Yes, sir. The Marines answered together. The craft touched down near the largest Viridian settlement. The doors opened and Jake led his team out into an alien world. The gravity was lighter than Earth's, making every step feel like he might float away. The air smelled sweet like flowers and growing things. But there was another smell too, burning and death. The settlement was a disaster. Beautiful buildings of living crystal were shattered. Gardens that must have taken years to grow were torn apart. And there were bodies. Viridians lay where they had fallen, their translucent skin dull in death. They looked like tall, thin humans made of glass with wide eyes that had seen too much horror before the end. Spread out, Jake ordered. 2-person teams. Stay in communication. Find survivors and get them to safety. The Marines moved quickly through the settlement. Jake took Mike with him, heading toward what looked like a central structure. They could hear weapons fire in the distance and the screams of Viridians being hunted. They found their first survivors in a collapsed building. 3 Viridian children huddled in a corner, shaking with fear. They looked at the humans with terror, probably thinking these armored figures were more attackers. Jake removed his helmet so they could see his face. We're here to help. We're friends. Can you understand me? The translation device on his armor worked, converting his words into the Viridian language. One of the children, braver than the others, nodded slowly. You came. The elder said someone might come, but we didn't believe. Are you the humans? The ones from the Deathworld? Yes, Jake said gently. And we're going to keep you safe. Mike, get them to the landing craft. Mike nodded and carefully guided the children away. Jake put his helmet back on and continued deeper into the settlement. His radio crackled with reports from other teams. Amy had found a group of 15 Viridians hiding in an underground garden. Another team had located the Elder Council but was pinned down by Krathul forces. All teams, this is Morrison. Priority target is the Elder Council location. Converge on their position. We're not leaving anyone behind. Jake ran through the crystal streets, his boots crunching on broken glass-like material. He could hear the Krathul now, their harsh voices calling to each other as they hunted. They sounded excited, like this was a game to them. He rounded a corner and came face to face with 3 Krathul soldiers. They were even uglier up close, covered in scales and scars, carrying weapons that looked like they were designed to cause maximum pain. They were surprised to see a human, and that moment of hesitation cost them. Jake fired his rifle 3 times. The Krathul fell, their armor no match for human military weapons. He didn't stop to check if they were dead. More gunfire erupted from nearby, and he headed toward it. The Elder Council building was ahead, a tall structure of silver and crystal that spiraled toward the sky. Krathul soldiers surrounded it, firing at something inside. Jake could see his Marines taking cover behind rubble, returning fire but unable to advance. Inside the building, Viridian elders were trapped. Amy saw Jake approaching and waved. "Commander, there are about 20 Krathul between us and the building. We can't get through without heavy casualties." Jake studied the situation. The Krathul had good defensive positions and superior numbers in this area. A direct assault would be suicide, but humans had learned a lot about warfare in their violent history. Sometimes the best solution wasn't the obvious one. Mike, take half the team and circle around to the left. Make noise, draw their attention. Amy, you're with me. We're going right and up. Up, sir. Amy looked confused. Those crystal structures, can we climb them? Amy grinned. Only one way to find out. Jake and his team moved quietly to the right while Mike's team started making noise on the left. The Krathul took the bait, shifting most of their forces to face what they thought was the main threat. Jake and Amy climbed a nearby crystal structure, their earth-trained muscles making easy work of the lighter gravity. From above, they had a perfect view of the Krathul positions. Jake signaled his team. On his mark, they opened fire from their elevated position. The Krathul, caught completely by surprise, tried to find cover but had nowhere to go. In less than a minute, the fight was over. Jake dropped down from the structure and ran into the Elder building. Inside, he found 5 Viridians huddled together, their leader standing in front to protect the others. She was tall and graceful even in fear, with skin that glowed faintly blue. "I am Elder Tessalin," she said in a shaking voice. "You are the humans who came to our aid?" "Yes, ma'am. We need to get you somewhere safe. Can you walk?" "We can run if necessary, Commander." "But what about the others? There are thousands of our people scattered across the settlements." Jake activated his radio. "All teams report status." The responses came in quickly. His Marines had found hundreds of Viridians and were moving them to secure locations. The Krathul ground forces were being pushed back, confused by the aggressive human tactics. These pirates were used to fighting the defenseless or facing enemies who followed predictable military doctrines. Humans did neither, but the battle was far from over. Jake could hear more Krathul landing craft arriving, bringing reinforcements. The enemy was regrouping, getting organized. The real fight was just beginning. "Elder, I need you to gather your people in the strongest building you have, somewhere we can defend. Can you do that?" Tessalin nodded. "The Great Garden. It has walls of living stone, very thick. We can reach it through underground passages." "Good. Mike, Amy, get the Elder and her council to the Great Garden. Start evacuating all civilians there. I'm going to coordinate the defensive perimeter." As the Viridians were led away, Jake looked out at the burning settlement. His Marines were scattered across the area, fighting to protect people they had never met. The horizon's edge was damaged in orbit, barely functioning. Earth's government would probably court-martial him for ignoring orders. The Galactic Council would be furious. But somewhere in this chaos, Viridian children were being pulled from the rubble alive. Families were reuniting in tears. A gentle species that had never hurt anyone was being given a chance to survive. Jake checked his weapon and headed back into the fight. The Krathul wanted easy prey, but they had found Deathworlders instead. And humans didn't give up, didn't retreat, didn't abandon those who needed help. Earth had taught them that through countless struggles and wars. Now the galaxy would learn what that meant. Part 4. The Cost of Heroism. The battle continued through the night. The Viridian world had a 20-hour day cycle, and by the time their purple sun began to rise, Jake had been fighting for 18 of those hours. His armor was scorched and dented. His rifle had overheated twice. His body ached in ways he had never experienced before, even during the hardest training back on Earth. But they were winning. The Great Garden had become their fortress. Its walls were made of living stone that the Viridians had grown over centuries, thick and strong. Inside, nearly 3,000 Viridians huddled together, the survivors from a dozen different settlements. Jake's Marines held the walls and the approaches, fighting off wave after wave of Krathul attacks. Kevin Walsh, their medic, worked without stopping in a makeshift hospital inside the garden. He treated human and Viridian wounds side by side, his hand steady even as exhaustion tried to claim him. The Viridians who could help did so, bringing water and supplies, learning quickly how to assist with basic first aid. The Krathul kept coming, but their attacks were getting weaker, more desperate. They had lost too many soldiers and their ships in orbit were gone. These ground forces were stranded now, cut off from escape. Some tried to surrender, but most fought to the end. Pirates had no home to return to in disgrace. Jake stood on the garden wall watching the sunrise paint the sky in shades of purple and gold. It was beautiful and terrible at the same time. Beautiful because the Viridian world was stunning even after the destruction. Terrible because he could see the cost of their victory spread across the landscape. Mike climbed up to stand beside him. The big sergeant's armor was covered in burn marks and blood. "Commander, we've got a count. 12 dead. 23 wounded, 3 of them critical. Kevin says he might lose one more before we can get proper medical care." Jake closed his eyes. 12 Marines dead. 12 young men and women who had answered the call to serve, who had followed him into this fight, who would never see Earth again. Their names and faces ran through his mind. Private Ben Lucas shot through the chest while defending the eastern gate. Corporal Sarah Morgan, killed by a grenade while pulling Viridian children to safety. Lance Corporal Tim Ross, who had held a choke point alone for 10 minutes so others could retreat. "What about the Viridians?" Jake asked. "Elder Tessalin says we saved about 4,000. Maybe 1,000 died before we arrived or in the fighting. The settlements are destroyed, but the people survived. 4,000 lives saved, 1,000 lost. The mathematics of war were cold and brutal. Jake wanted to feel good about the thousands they had rescued, but he kept thinking about the ones they couldn't save, and about his own people who had paid the price. "The last Krathul forces are pulling back," Mike continued. "They're beaten. Some are trying to surrender. What do you want to do with them?" "Take their weapons and keep them under guard. Let the Viridians decide their fate. This is their world." Mike nodded and headed back down. Jake remained on the wall, watching the day grow brighter. His radio crackled with Lisa's voice from the horizon's edge in orbit. "Commander, we have incoming ships. Multiple vessels dropping out of faster than light. Galactic Council markings and about time," Jake muttered. "What's their status?" "They're hailing us. The lead ship wants to speak with you." "And Commander." "They sound angry." Jake climbed down from the wall and headed to the communication setup they had established in the garden. Elder Tessalin was there, along with several other Viridian leaders. They looked exhausted but alive, their glowing skin brighter now that the immediate danger had passed. Jake activated the communication link. A council official appeared, the same jellyfish-like creature that had ordered him not to come here. Its many eyes focused on Jake with obvious displeasure. "Commander Morrison, you directly violated council orders. You engaged in unauthorized military action. You started a conflict with the Krathul swarm. The consequences of your actions will be severe." "With respect, sir, I didn't start this conflict. The Krathul did when they attacked defenseless civilians. We simply responded to a distress call. One human ship does not make policy decisions for the entire council. What you call heroism, others will call recklessness. You have risked diplomatic incidents and—" Elder Tessalin stepped forward, interrupting the official. Her voice was soft but carried authority. "Excuse me, Counselor. I am Elder Tessalin of the Viridian people. I believe I should speak on this matter." The council official looked annoyed at the interruption but nodded. "Very well, Elder. Please explain the situation." "The situation is simple. We sent a distress call into the void, not expecting anyone to answer. The council ships were too far away. We were told to wait and hope. But Commander Morrison and his crew did not wait. They came, they fought for us. They bled for us. 12 of them died for us. We are not warriors. We do not understand military matters or political games. But we understand this. When we needed help, when we were dying, only the humans came." The counselor was quiet for a moment. "Elder, we understand your gratitude, but—" "No," Tessalin said firmly. "I do not think you do understand. Before today, we believed the galaxy was civilized, that the Council protected the weak. We learned that belief was wrong. The Council would have let us die because we had no strategic value. But these humans from their death world, they gave up safety and comfort to save strangers. If that is what you call reckless, then perhaps the galaxy needs more recklessness." Jake felt a surge of respect for the gentle elder, who had found strength in the worst moment of her people's history. The counselor seemed at a loss for words, its many eyes blinking in what might have been confusion or embarrassment. "We will Discuss this matter further, the official finally said. Council ships will remain in orbit to ensure stability. Commander Morrison, you are ordered to return to Earth and await judgment. The communication ended. Jake stood in silence, knowing that his military career was probably over. He would face charges, maybe even prison. But when he looked around the great garden and saw the Viridian families together, saw the children playing despite everything they had been through, he couldn't regret his choices. Amy approached him, her young face serious. Commander, the wounded are stable enough to transport. Kevin wants to move the critical cases to the horizon's edge where he has better equipment. Make it happen. And Amy, start arranging the memorial service for our people. They deserve to be honored. The next few hours passed in a blur of activity. The wounded were transported to the ship. The dead were gathered with reverence. The Viridians worked alongside the humans, helping to repair what could be fixed and mourning what was lost. As the purple sun began to set again, Jake stood in a clearing where they had buried the 12 fallen Marines. The graves were marked with stones from the Viridian gardens, each one engraved with a name and rank. Elder Tessalin had insisted her people create something special. 12 trees, genetically modified to glow in the dark, one planted at each grave. They will be called the Guardian Trees, Tessalin explained to Jake. They will grow for 1,000 years, and every Viridian child will learn the names of those who died to save us. Your people will never be forgotten on our world. Jake knelt by the graves, his hand touching the fresh earth. Behind him, his remaining Marines stood at attention. The Viridians gathered around, thousands of them, silent in respect for these alien warriors who had given everything. I'm sorry, Jake whispered to the dead. I'm sorry I brought you here. I'm sorry I couldn't get you home. But even as he said it, he knew he would make the same choice again. Someone had called for help and they had answered. That was what humanity did. That was what separated civilized beings from monsters. Not technology or territory, but the willingness to stand up for others even at personal cost. As the glowing trees began to pulse with soft light, Jake stood and faced his crew. Let's go home. They boarded the landing craft in silence, leaving behind a world forever changed, carrying with them scars both visible and invisible, knowing that nothing would ever be quite the same again. Part 5. The Echo. Across the galaxy, news of the Viridian incident spread through the galactic community like fire through dry grass. The story was told and retold, each version adding details and emotion. A single human ship had defied the Council, fought against impossible odds, and saved a dying species. 12 humans had given their lives for people they had never met, from a world they would never see again. The galaxy didn't know what to make of it. Jake and his crew spent 3 weeks traveling back to Earth, the horizon's edge limping through space with barely functioning engines. During that time, communications flooded in from across the galaxy. Some were supportive, praising their courage. Others were angry, calling them warmongers and troublemakers. Most were simply confused, unable to understand why anyone would risk so much for strangers. But other messages started coming too. Distress calls, a mining colony under attack by raiders begging for help, a refugee convoy trapped by a stellar anomaly, running out of life support, a research station with failing systems, slowly dying in the cold of space. Each message ended the same way. We know the Council won't come in time. Please, if there are any humans listening, please help. Earth's government was in chaos. The president and military leaders argued about what to do. Some wanted to punish Jake and his crew for ignoring orders. Others saw an opportunity. The defense minister, a stern woman named Helen Price, addressed the Global Council with a speech that would be remembered for generations. For 30 years, we have tried to fit into galactic society. We have made ourselves smaller, quieter, less threatening. We have hidden what we are because we were afraid others would fear us. But Commander Morrison and his crew showed the galaxy something important. Yes, Earth is a death world. Yes, we are warriors. But we are warriors who fight for others. We are protectors, not predators. The question now is simple. Do we embrace that role or continue to apologize for existing? The debate raged for days. Meanwhile, more distress calls arrived. 37 in the first week after the Viridian incident, 52 in the second week. By the third week, over 100 desperate pleas for help had reached Earth from across the galaxy. When Jake finally arrived home, he expected to be arrested. Instead, he was met by a delegation that included the president herself. They met in a quiet room at military headquarters away from the media storm outside. The president was an older woman with kind eyes and a tired face. "Commander Morrison, you put us in a very difficult position." "I understand, ma'am. I'm ready to accept the consequences of my actions. The Galactic Council wants you court-martialed. They say you're a dangerous renegade who violated diplomatic protocols and risked starting a war." Jake nodded. He had expected this. However, the president continued, "We've received over 5,000 messages of support from citizens across Earth. The Viridians have sent 3 separate delegations to speak on your behalf. 14 other species have done the same. And there's something else." She activated a holographic display. It showed a map of the galaxy with hundreds of points of light scattered across it. Each of these points is a distress call asking specifically for human help. They don't want council ships. They want deathworlders. They want people who will actually show up when called. "What are you saying, ma'am?" "I'm saying the galaxy has given us a role whether we wanted it or not. We can either accept it or spend the next 100 years trying to convince everyone we're not what they need us to be. The Council has proposed a compromise. They want to create a new designation, Protectors, a force that responds to emergencies the Council can't or won't handle. And they want humans to fill that role." Jake sat back in his chair, processing this information. "That's a lot of responsibility. A lot of lives at risk. Yes, it will cost us. More people will die like those 12 Marines on Viridian. But if we don't do it, how many others will die? How many more Viridians will burn while the galaxy watches?" It was a heavy burden to place on humanity's shoulders. But Jake thought about Elder Tessalin and her people. He thought about the children hiding in gardens, waiting for death that didn't come because someone decided to help. He thought about those 12 graves under glowing trees. "I'll do whatever Earth needs me to do," Jake said. "Good. Because you're going to be very busy." 3 months later, the Galactic Council held a special session on their homeworld. Jake stood in the Grand Chamber, surrounded by thousands of alien delegates. The architecture was stunning, built by species with millions of years of civilization behind them. Jake felt small and young in comparison, but he wasn't alone. His crew stood with him: Lisa, Danny, Karen, Tony, Mike, Amy, and others. Survivors of the Viridian fight, scarred but unbroken. Behind them, on screens visible throughout the chamber, were the faces of the 12 who had died. Everyone would know their sacrifice. Elder Tessalin spoke first, her voice translated into hundreds of languages. "Before the humans came, my people believed we lived in a civilized galaxy. We thought that being advanced meant being safe. We learned we were wrong. Civilization is not buildings or technology or long histories. Civilization is choosing to help when it would be easier to look away. By that measure, the humans from their harsh world are more civilized than species who have existed for millions of years." Other delegates spoke, representing species that humans had helped in the 3 months since Viridian, a mining colony where Jake's crew had driven off raiders, a refugee convoy that Danny had managed to save from a stellar anomaly, using incredible engineering, a research station where Karen had kept people alive until rescue arrived. Then the council speaker addressed the chamber. It was a different alien than the one who had refused to help the Viridians. This one was older, its form like a crystal that caught and refracted light. "We have debated long about the humans and their place in our society. They are violent, unpredictable, and refuse to follow established protocols. They come from a world that would kill most of us in hours. They are everything we have tried to move beyond in our pursuit of peaceful civilization." Jake felt his heart sink. This sounded like the beginning of expulsion from the council. And yet, the speaker continued, "They answer when others will not. They fight when we would negotiate. They sacrifice when we would calculate costs. Perhaps we have been wrong about what strength means. Perhaps surviving on a death world taught humans something we peaceful species have forgotten. That sometimes, civilization must be defended by those willing to stand in the dark places." The speaker gestured, and a holographic document appeared in the air above the chamber. "We propose a new designation within the Galactic Council, Protectors, a force dedicated to responding to emergencies throughout the galaxy. They will have authority to act when time is critical, to defend the defenseless, to stand between innocents and those who would harm them. This role comes with great responsibility and even greater risk. It will cost lives. It will require sacrifices. It is not a role we would ask of anyone lightly." The speaker looked directly at Jake. Commander Morrison, humanity has shown it possesses the strength and will necessary for this role. But we must ask, are you willing to accept this burden? To send your people into danger again and again, knowing many will not return? Jake thought about the question carefully. He looked at his crew, seeing in their faces the same determination he felt. He thought about the distress calls still coming in, desperate voices calling out in the dark. He thought about a promise he had made standing over 12 graves, that their sacrifice would mean something. "We're willing," Jake said, "because someone has to answer when people call for help. Earth taught us to be survivors, but we choose to be more than that. We choose to be protectors." The chamber erupted in mixed reactions. Some species applauded, others argued, but the decision was made. Humanity would become the protectors of the galaxy, the ones who answered when others would not. As Jake left the chamber, Lisa walked beside him. "You know this means we'll be fighting for the rest of our lives, right? Every species that gets in trouble will call for the Deathworlders." "I know," Jake said. "But look at it this way. We're finally doing what humans do best. Not conquering or destroying, but protecting. Earth made us strong so we could defend those who can't defend themselves." Tony joined them, grinning. "At least we won't be bored anymore," Danny laughed. "Bored? I haven't slept properly in months." They walked through the alien corridors together, a crew that had faced death and come out changed. Behind them, delegates from hundreds of species watched the humans leave, some with suspicion, some with hope, all with curiosity about what these Deathworlders would do next. And across the galaxy, in the darkness between stars, more distress calls were being sent. Mining colonies under attack, research stations failing, peaceful species facing violence they couldn't comprehend. Each call ended the same way. "Please, if anyone can hear this, send help." They didn't know it yet, but help was coming. The Deathworlders were listening now, and they had made a choice. From their harsh world of storms and predators, of wars and struggles, humanity had emerged not as conquerors but as guardians. The plea had echoed through the stars, and the Deathworlders had responded. They would keep responding again and again, paying the